Spook,
Yes.
what is that on your face?
Well, aside from a poor attempt at a gag, 12 months ago this would have been known as a merkin, but these days it's a Markov.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And it's more than 4 quarters Spook.
Spook.
Yes.
A gritty, ugly win over a gritty, ugly Sydney Swans, who biggest claim to fame nowadays is they're trying to beat a new Collingwood by losing grand finals.
They overachieved there.
Yeah. They've lost their last 2 games. They got smashed
Last
by
3
Geelong.
games, isn't it?
Now it's 3. Lost the first one to Geelong. Got smashed down at Kardinia Park. Yeah, it's Kardinia Park. And then GWS had an improbable comeback and beat them. So they were fucking stinging. And obviously there's a bit of angst in this game.
Bit of argy-bargy.
You know, preliminary final loss. There's a little sniping prick named Tom Papley who doesn't help things.
Do you think we should boo him?
It'd probably go over his head. What do you think of this game?
I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before. I remember I went to the game. It's one of those rare games that I went to. They're thinking at half time. Well, 2 things actually. I don't think we were playing particularly
2
well.
things.
Yeah, but I was having a beer with a mate of mine in the one of the bars at the ground, and I said, look, I think all we're going to do is break even with them in the 3rd quarter, and we'll just run over them in the 4th like normal. I hate the fact that they're building that confidence into me. Because this can only go one place. But other than that, look, it's still gobsmacking just what they turn on in the last.
Yeah, I saw a stat where they talked about the pressure acts for the last quarter. I think they're saying, I don't know where they get the score from, but they said like over 190s elite, and Collingwood's going way over that at times.
Yeah, through the roof or something.
Yeah. So last quarters we turned it on, and I mean I saw articles today like people are going, we can't go, or media experts were saying you can't go defensive against them in the last quarter because that just plays into their hands and they just run over the top of you. So you got to try and counter punch them. So for some reason we can play 1 quarter of football. I had this discussion with the person I watched it with and was just saying, you take away some of like the Melbourne game where we played a good game the whole game last year, both of them actually. Most of the games we played about 30 minutes of football, if that. You know, North Melbourne, we were shit for 3 and a bit quarters. Hawthorn was shit for 3 and a bit quarters. Gold Coast, same thing. And then they just turn it on for 20 minutes. And very rarely have they turned that on consistently over the whole course of the game. It does worry me that that's going to become their methodology.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, as we saw last year, it's not something that is going to work well in finals. Yeah, they've gone from kicking over, was it first 2 games 120 plus.
Yeah.
To becoming incredibly miserly. I mean, defensively, no one else is scoring except for Brisbane when they kicked 47 goals in 3 minutes. But that's the only outlier in that.
Just before you go into that,
statement.
just the Brisbane game they played McStay predominantly in the ruck. Since that game, they've played Frampton predominantly in the ruck. And Frampton, they're saying like his conversion of taps to advantage for what he gets and all that sort of shit is just off the charts.
Yeah, I mean, we won the hitouts yesterday, but yeah, unlike the days when Grundy used to win the hitouts, is that these are a lot more effective.
Yeah,
and you know, like Frampton out of that, I think we won the hitouts 48 to something, and Frampton represented 32 of those.
Well, I was actually surprised they played Cox very little in the ruck.
Yeah, well, I didn't going into that. I didn't think that was going to happen with the spleen thing. I don't think they wanted him to be smashed and crashed in the ruck too much. I thought he would play predominantly as a forward or at least a target up there just to bring it to the ground. But I'm pleasantly surprised. Not surprised with Frampton. Pleased, I think is the better word.
Well, what happens? I mean, let's assume that all their players stay up and fit.
This is reality, Greg.
I don't. I know the club hasn't talked about it. I'm not convinced Howe will come back at all from an injury that's serious.
I'm glad you brought that up. No, I think the other thing is, where's he going to come back and who's he going to displace?
But this is what I was going to say is, if Howe comes back and actually fits in, do they then say, well, Frampton's just going to be our ruckman then? And there's Cameron and Cox fight for that last spot. So you still got McStay to come in, so they got like a few tools. Do they go, well, Frampton's doing that. and we'll bring in Cameron. That means Cox goes out, McStay goes out, or whatever the case is. So it'll be interesting what they do with the balance, but I mean, that's assuming that they're all fit at the same time, which is pretty funny.
That's it. It's going to be... I mean, it's a pleasing problem to have, that you can think about this. Yeah, when are they due back? Because Cameron is what, he'd be about a month away. Howe reckons he's tracking ahead of schedule, so he'll be back in 2032.
Look, the Howe one, like, speaking from someone who's broken an arm and done some serious damage, to the extent that he damaged it where bones are poking out and stuff, so the bones are breaking through flesh. And if they're breaking through flesh, they're potentially breaking through nerves and stuff. So I'm not convinced that his injury is not a lot worse than they've let on. It might be fine, might just be a break. My cousin did do a similar break. He avoided all nerve damage. But for the severity of that break, I'm not sure he's going to have the same motor control in his hand, in his arm. So, club hasn't said anything.
It could get better.
Oh, yeah, you'd wish. But if he is back, then they could slow him down back. And, they play Frampton as their ruck, which wasn't their intention, but he's obviously doing well. And he is. He reminds me a little bit of Cameron when Cameron was coming on last year, where he was actually starting to take marks and impose himself on the game. If there's probably one criticism of Frampton, same with Cameron, is they look really lackadaisical at times. Whereas, you look at Cox when he's running at a pack, you think he's going to stamp himself on this pack, and he takes a few really good overhead marks where he hits packs and that. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, the other...
Did you know that if Frampton was an Oliver Stone movie, it'd be Natural Born Ruckman?
Yeah, I'll edit that out. So in terms of about 3/4, I thought Mitchell was good. The two Dacosses were sort of quiet. I actually think too...
It could be a reason why one of them was quiet.
We're going to go into that later.
Oh, okay.
But with Nick Dacos, I actually think they've got to start exploring just playing him as a mid. Because if he's going to get tagged out of it as a half-back, you might as well just throw him in the middle. And he got 10 possessions in the last quarter, so regardless of what they were doing and what they think they achieved, he dominated that last quarter, and he did really well.
Are we talking about him now? I think you're going to talk about him later. But
I was going to talk about the treatment of him later.
Yeah, I'm just leading on with what you just said then. Did you see the post-match interview with him, where they asked him about the taking the tag, and he laughed and said that, well, it just frees up one or two others to pretty much come on and do stuff. So I think they've actually factored that into the game, that you could use him as a decoy. What did he end up with, 25 possessions?
Yeah, 25, 27.
Yeah, I mean, he still had a little bit of influence, not as much as probably normal, but it does free up other blokes out there. I mean, I think the tactic that could be working against it, despite the fact that so far the pundits that are working in the media now either wanted to put him into a coma to stop him or tag the living bejesus out of him, he's providing that decoy role for others to sort of still get that ball moving forward.
Are you surprised that some, I don't know, what's the terminology, fucking morons on Twitter are trying to cut him down?
I was going to say luminaries.
Well, I do recall there was one person a few weeks ago, the Brisbane game, where sort of Dacos, he sort of short-stepped the contest, but I think
he
but he short-stepped it because I think he anticipated taking the ball and sliding through, and he didn't take the ball. And then some fuckwit on Twitter goes, "Ooh, Nick Dacos," and then sort of it was a condemnation. And then someone else posted something about him. It's like, ooh, I'm not sure what they're trying to cut him down. It's like, okay, you highlight one or two errors he makes, which player doesn't, and you're overlooking the 80% of his game that's effective. You're surprised that there are fuckwits out there who are trying to cut him down?
I'm never surprised there are fuckwits out there.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, Jared Healy actually came out in support of Nick Dacos and just said, what the fuck are you doing? And I saw Nathan Buckley talking about, he called him a savant when it comes to actually reading the game and what he does. His understanding of the game in that split second is just, he goes, you just got to enjoy it because it's just not something you see that often.
I think the thing that I was going to finish before is that sides are coming in now with a focus on stopping him, without looking at the bigger picture of what do you do against the whole side. And that's fine by me. If you want to come in and then channel your energy into how to stop one bloke, then more power to us. That's one bloke that's just going to take the attention away. So, I mean, you looked at, you probably covered it in the treatment, but that opening moment in the game where they all swamped him, or they're trying to get his DNA or something to clone him. But it was just it's too much. In terms of attention, I don't mind the fact that you've gone up and you try to put a bloke off his game, but it was just too much.
I'll go into that now. because this also leads into something else. So the booing of Buddy Franklin. You're at the game. Did you notice him being booed?
So the funny thing is...
That is funny.
There's a fair bit of booing that goes on in a game. I didn't particularly notice. I thought at one stage maybe I missed him dropping an elbow or something, that somebody else in there, and you know how it tends to propagate around the ground.
According to Turtle, who relayed a tweet from Rowan, and Rowan said, Buddy dropped an elbow on Murphy when Murphy was down on the ground, and said if you actually notice the booing is coming from that section of the ground who actually saw it, and that's why he was getting booed. So it wasn't anything else other than he was getting booed because he did something shitty. So God forbid that, anyone gets booed for stuff like that. So what do you think of booing, 36-year-old champions who apparently are beyond booing?
See, I don't understand it to a point. I get it when there's a bit of a dog act there that's being executed. I think it's normal that the crowd boo. It's just been part of the game forever. The one that confused me was when we played Port and the booing of Horn Francis. I don't understand why. We don't have a beef against him. He's done nothing to us. Is it the fact that the crowd are just expressing their dissatisfaction that he broke his contract and jumped clubs?
No, so I had a friend there, and he said, I asked him, why are you booing him? He goes, we're booing him because he was the number one pick and Nick Dacos wasn't.
Oh, who gives a fuck?
Well, but I'm just saying the logic wasn't anything other than that.
Logic. The second one was that, the thing that I thought of at the time when I did started to notice it was that maybe because his performance was pretty ordinary. I think it's been ordinary all year.
Who's that?
Is Franklin. Are the crowd just letting him know he's gone 1 year too long? Is it become... Because he was out of contract, he's taken another year. Yeah. He'd be getting remunerated well. He's not performing anywhere near the standards. He probably looks like he should have retired. Are they expressing their dissatisfaction there? Well, but it's a natural thing from there. It's progressed into... it's only a tick away from being a racist thing.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the earlier point there, because my inside information is it wasn't Collingwood fans booing him, but Sydney fans. They paid this flog good money to get him a flag. He hasn't done it. They pushed out club legends like Jesse White to get this guy at the club. And what's it amounted to? Nothing. Meanwhile, Hawthorn's won flags without him. No, look, it's... For me, football... Unless you actually ban booing, then people can boo. And that's all it comes down to. If you're on the outlaw booing and then people boo, then there's a fucking issue. But this sort of thing, I actually found it ridiculous. And going back to the Nick Dacos thing, I actually find it weak as piss, John Longmire, that you send pretty much the whole team out to physically intimidate Nick Dacos pre-game, and television didn't capture, a fraction of what was happening. And you get the AFL who are constantly trying to outlaw melees and jumper punches and, cheap elbows and shit like that. And you've let that go on. And the umpires haven't said, as they did last year when Nick Dacos elbowed, I can't remember what it was, but we played Port and he elbowed someone in the back, just like the bit of niggle.
Yeah.
And they paid him free and actually reported him for it. And they've done nothing to the Swans. And I actually find that weak as piss by Sydney. I actually hate the false bravado that, players do where they're, punching, not punching, but they're sort of jostling and all that sort of shit. I understand a little pushing in that, but they actually went, I think, well above and beyond. I actually love that McRae came out and said, if you're going to do that, we're going to fly the flag for our player. And well done to Braden Maynard, who was just fucking straight in there. I saw another fuckwit on Twitter sort of pick on Maynard going, oh, how gutless. It's like, oh, okay, so 18 Sydney players going after Nick Dacos, that's fine. Maynard going defending his teammate, that's an issue. You are a fucking moron, mate.
Actually, I don't mind reading that because I'm missing the hate that we had. Everyone loves us these days. I'm feeling nervous. I don't understand it. I'm not sure how I should feel.
But I actually think...
I like reading about the hate.
I actually think because of the buddy thing, the bullying, this hasn't got enough tension. I think the shit they did to Nick Dacos pre-game, so it's not during the game, it's pre-game where all the players have gone after him, I think that's weak as piss. And I actually think that should be an issue for the AFL. Not because it's Nick Dacos, but that it actually happens where, like I said, you're trying to break up melee. So you don't want a swarm of players. And I saw that there was players fined and all that. It's like, Collingwood players shouldn't actually get fined. What they expected to do? All these Sydney guys are Nick Dacos. Papley's elbowing him hard in the back, hard enough that it should be a report. And then everyone's sort of going, oh, but Buddy Franklin, who's a fucking millionaire, is getting booed. Boo-hoo. Let's sympathise with him. It's like, well, I think you should actually be looking at the other end of the game. And that really annoys me. I think that was just weakest piss from Sydney.
Do you think it's just one big deflective tactic from
I wouldn't be
Longmire
surprised.
to take the heat off his side?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because that was really shit. I thought it was like weakest piss, and I'm surprised no journalist, and I use that term loosely because we include Mark Robinson and John Ralph in that descriptor.
They're cadets, aren't they? Are they work experience people?
I don't know. I was going to say something else there, but
I've derailed it. Brilliant.
No, I was just...
The other thing, if you wanted to talk double standards, I don't think we need to get to that level, but if you had to, there was a fair bit of booing of Ginnivan at the prelim last year. Was he upset about that, or is it only champions? He had a disclaimer in there that's only champions.
Well,
everyone else is worthy of booing, he reckons, but champions, you've just got to not boo them.
Look, I know this has happened with other clubs and other players, but, you know, Essendon's booed Scott Pendlebury when he took the Anzac Day medal a few years ago. So, Pendlebury's a champion. I actually remember going back 10 years ago, Didak playing against Melbourne, tore his adductor when he was going for a long kick at goal, and the Melbourne supporters jeered him off, and that was like, I thought he massive bad taste, but that's fine.
Well, back then they didn't have very little to get excited about.
Yeah, but it's just it's this selectivity that you sort of go, okay, this is not good.
Well, that's
I mean, you've booed Ginnivan the whole fucking year, last year, and going on Ginnivan, he gets his head taken off, and then they re-show it or replay it, and bloody Brian Taylor goes, "Oh well, he bent his knees." He's fucking picking up the ball, you idiot. Well, how do you want him to pick up the ball without bending his knees, you fucking dickhead? And then it goes down the other end and Papley lunges into a side bottom tackle and gets hit high. And you can see side bottom just sort of smiling the way he does and goes, well, fuck, he's jumped into that. Credit to Daisy Pearce, who just said, that's no different to what happened to Ginnivan. And Brian Taylor just shut the fuck up. I mean, people are going, oh, this guy favours Collingwood. You're fucking kidding, aren't you? This guy loathes us for some reason, maybe because he got left out of the 1990 Premiership team.
He's doing well out of emceeing events, though.
Yeah, fuck. Jesus, I wish I could tell the club not to hire him. But it's why is Ginnivan getting treated like that by not just spectators, by officialdom? That was really, I think, again, that's really piss weak.
I think as much as the AFL would love to, there's no chance you're going to get the booing out of the game. I don't think, well,
Slobbo said that they should fine clubs.
Yeah, as I was trying to say before, the media narrative is they love to pin it against the racist thing. Clearly, I don't think that's the case. Not maybe. Well, I don't think it's the case at all. But it's one of those things that's just been part and parcel of the game for so long. Some of it's misdirected. A lot of it's just part of the game. I don't think
a lot of it is theatre of
you're not going to get rid of it. I mean, what next? You're going to tell them not to say anything about all the shit umpiring out there?
Well, apparently, so the AFL's trying to gag. All right, let's go back to the game because we can go back to this stuff later. First quarter, we sort of dominated, didn't really convert. They killed us in the second quarter. That kicking right of screen really seemed to be the scoring end. Third quarter, we got back to some sort of parity with them. Still weren't looking great. Last quarter, we just fucking overran them. You made a good point earlier. It was when Hill was subbed off. No offence to Hill, but when Ginnivan came on, that seemed to be a little bit of a turning point. Yeah. A little bit of a spark. I think all the other sort of like guys like DeGoey and Nick Dacos, they came into it more. Pendlebury looked like the first half. He looked like he was a step behind the tempo because he'd missed last week, but he worked his way into it. I think some of the other players going to it more was good. My check was fucking amazing.
Goal of the year, you reckon?
No.
Is the Ashcroft one better?
I don't think the Ashcroft one's that good. It's a good goal, but like people are going like I heard all the descriptions like, oh fuck, you got to see this Ashcroft goal. It's amazing, and then like I watch, it's like, well, he dropped it on his boot and kicked it straight. Wow, it's a great little skill to sort of grab it out of the pack and do that.
You're a hard man to please.
The one that Cameron kicked in the same game, I thought was a lot better, but it was like it involved skill, evasion. I mean, the Ashcroft one, and he said it himself. I could do that, 10 times, and I wouldn't do it again. I always like the goals where there's a little bit of skill and premeditation in them. It's a good goal, but like the way they described it, I was thinking, well, fuck, what's this? He must have scissor kicked it from the boundary line in the pocket while the ball after the ball had dropped from 80 metres in the air or some shit. And I was like, oh, is that it? And the my check one's really good, but who was that Richmond suck years ago? Was it Castagna or Higgins where he juggled the ball around?
Front of Moore.
Yeah,
it was Higgins.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was again like
some turd.
It was a good little.
Should we boo him?
Yeah, but it was right on the goal line. It's like, well, how are you going to miss? You know, so I think the Mychek thing was a really cool thing. But I mean, he was on the goal line. He had fucking all the goals to get. So anyway,
I think from the execution standpoint, I don't think like it's the same thing. If you did that 10 times in a row, you'd probably fluff it. It just looks good.
Oh, it looks great.
I mean, the fact that he's been tackled. The Ashcroft one, I think he was jumping out of a pack, so he wasn't really being pressured as much. I mean, it's still a good goal. Don't get me wrong, but the Mio one was impressive to see. I don't think it'll win goal the year either, because it's a ridiculous popular vote anyway. All the nuffies who ring in just with the anti-Collingwood bias will make sure it doesn't win, but it'll be up there. It's a worthy contender.
So, and that's the other thing with Collingwood too. In terms of winning, you needed Mychek to play out of his skin, kick 5 goals. Now he's not going to do that every week.
Oh, he's proved that. He's kicked 12 times.
Yep. So he's kicked 12 times. But in terms of we were talking about this a little bit earlier. When you have a Kerno or one of the Cameron or Hawkins or whatever, they have a shit day. They still kick 2. Our forwards, they have a shit day. They're unsighted. So that's the problem, I think, and particularly like in a big game against a better club than Sydney. We're going to struggle if we're relying on guys to play well above their, punch above their weight to win us the game. And it can happen, but as grand finals have proven, it doesn't happen at the right time.
No, that's the concerning part. That I just don't think that the way that we're playing at the moment is just going to serve us well in the finals. But a long way to go. There's a few bods to come back. You never know.
Any final thoughts about this game? Because I think we've covered it in our rambly way while we...
No, I think, in some respects, you've got to give a bit of credit to Sydney. I think they really do snuff teams out. That whole period that we struggled to score, which was, the second quarter, I think, wasn't it? That they spread and cut our run, and their pressure was relentless. Every time that we were near the ball, we had someone on us. They managed to chip it clear out of that, and they scored a couple of times from it, or at least had a scoring attempt. We were snuffed. I don't think we went inside 50 all that often, and when we did, it was just some sort of panic kick. Like, we talked about the Mychek one, where he's sort of could have just gone over the top, but he's gone with that grubber kick sideways. There was a number of these grubber little ground kicks, and I think they were trying to get under the congestion, but it just ended up being a turnover after turnover. It just wasn't working. They pressured us exceptionally well. But the thing is, I still reckon there's an element of rope-a-dope with the way that we're playing at the moment, as we're going to wear sides down with this. If we can keep within a goal or two of them, I think we're extremely confident in ourselves that we will go crazy eight bonkers in the last quarter and unleash the dogs of war, as they say. But I don't think you can rely on that every week. No, that's what I'm just saying. It's a big ask to pull that out of your ass every week. We did all those miracle kicks wins by under a kick last year. Didn't help us at all in the finals.
No.
So I'd be hoping we get back to more of what we were playing at the start of the year towards the business end of the season. I think at the moment scraping out 4 points is good. It's enough. You want to be sort of locked into the top 8 and make sure that you give yourself a good crack at the tail end of the season to get into a good position to compete with the top teams, whoever they may end up being.
I think the good thing is we've had a few of those games, like Geelong was another one where it didn't go down the wire the last couple of minutes. They sort of actually kicked away. So Mychek kicked his 5th goal with about 4 seconds left.
Yeah.
So before that, when you look at it, it's like, we won by, I think, 29 points. And it's like, but it was a lot closer than that. But in that last quarter...
They were only 3 kicks out of it with a couple of minutes to go.
But I was just sort of saying, instead of it being a goal we're protecting, we actually got up to 3-4 goals. They did the same thing against Geelong, where they actually, they ended up winning by 4 goals. To secure the one they blew, they got the sort of 4 goals up, and then let's secure the kick all these late ones. But I'm just sort of saying, last year, all these games were going within the kick, and they had to protect that one kick. Whereas this year, a few of these games they've pulled away and expanded the lead, so you can see that they're building a little bit on those close ones, they're actually extending leads rather than just protecting the narrowest fucking lead. The other thing I should say is actually do have a lot of injuries still. So you have about 7 players missing at the moment. McStay, Cameron are out. Only one of them will come back given the setup. Kruger, he probably wouldn't get back. But you go, have guys like Lipinski's also out. Howe's out. So they do have a few players out still, and they're probably from their start in 18-19. I do like what McRae said about Ginnivan, where they said that, well, Ginnivan, you drop Ginnivan. And he goes, no, we didn't drop him. He goes, we told Jack, you're in our starting 23. He goes, I don't like this thing about the sub that you have to drop him and then pick him from outside the 22. And he just said to Ginnivan, he goes, we spoke to Ginnivan about this and we told him you're not being dropped. This is just the way we're doing it. And he goes, next week we'll probably change around.
It reminded me a fair bit of the way that Malthouse used Didac back in the day when you had that the seat warmer role.
Yeah.
And then you brought them on as a really burst impact player. And I think that worked exceptionally well with Ginnivan. I said, he became a live wire. Things started to dynamically happen when he came on. And I think that was probably orchestrated. I think there was a period where you saw Ginnivan, he was on the phone and they were going through and he started peeling the top off and there was like a Batman suit underneath. It was getting that good. But I think it was pretty much they timed that moment when they were going to bring him on. Like going into half time, I thought probably Elliott was going to be the sacrificial one in the forward line to go. So I thought Hill was running and pressuring and hitting contests. He just wasn't impacting on anything. That I was surprised that they took him off in favour of Elliott because Elliott was probably struggling at that point. But come straight into the third quarter, he lifted massively and played out the second half really well. So, yeah, that was a surprise. But I think it was obviously going to be one of the two that were the option.
I think the other thing, though, is you got a side that, like, when they're running players who might not look great prior to that, they suddenly lift. And once the system gets going, then it brings everyone in. And, guys like Elliott and that can get more involved. And also, McRae pointed out in the press conference, because they were talking to him about, like, form and that, he goes, look, I played the same position. You can just not touch it sometimes. That's just the way it goes.
Oh, you look at McCreary's game.
Yeah. And, like, we were talking about who was going to get subbed. We didn't think it would be McCreary simply because of the pressure he can apply. And he does seem to be a late starter in games, It's like he just takes a while to get into it. So the commentary we were talking about possibly Mason Cox going off, but, like, I thought he was providing a target. He was taking a few marks. Yeah, so, I mean, it'll be interesting. I think next week it'll probably be Hill who subs. So, we're going into next week, we're playing the might of the GWS. They lost a close one to Bulldogs.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Green was fucking really, really good. What are your thoughts about this game?
Look, I think realistically we should
smash them.
You look. I would hope we do. They can be a bit of a slugging side at the moment. They seem to pull themselves back in when they probably shouldn't. A lot of it comes down to Toby Green. I think he was a big miss for them against the Dogs, but he'll come back for this one. To be honest, I don't know much about the GW side. Do you watch much of their games?
No, I try to, but
I think on their current form, I can only go on their form. On their form, we should account for them. And I would think maybe a 4 or 5 goal win would be a reasonable outcome. But if we smash them to the tune of 190 points, I'd be extremely happy at the same time.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that too. I think that's pretty much.
Are they bringing back Mumford for the game?
No, they'll bring him
Big
back.
Mummy, he's not coming back?
I'll bring him back for the Melbourne game.
Let's just prop him up for 2 hours just to smack Grundy around and then put him back into retirement.
Out of curiosity, a lot of conversation going around about umpiring.
Is there?
Yeah.
I haven't noticed.
Geelong game, there was a terrible non-decision for Ben Keys and the goal square.
Yeah, the holding the man.
Yeah. Which 100 times out of 100 I think would be holding the man. It wasn't paid. The game was close. I'm pretty sure Geelong went the other end. And
yeah, they goaled from it.
They goaled.
Yeah. It was about 8 points of difference at that stage, and they were staging a comeback. Yeah, I would have put them back within a kick. I think they could have probably run over the top of them. Yeah. And it is a momentum-changing decision.
And then you get the Gold Coast game against Melbourne when they had several frees up for just which weren't paid when the game was again within the kick. Generally, you can't criticise umpires. There's talk that the AFL are going to gag coaches and that from talking about.
Can they gag Robbo?
Yeah, unfortunately not. But there's talk about gagging coaches, so no one can actually criticise an umpire for being shit, because God forbid that you do that, and there's some accountability. What do you think about umpiring at the moment? Because I think it's fucking deplorable. I think there's a number of rules broken. We'll have this conversation with a few other guys. I think that the deliberate rules just fucked. It just basically, if you kick it and you have a teammate within 5 metres, it's deliberate.
It's I don't know what the dynamic is meant to be out there, but it actually feels like it's gotten worse now that you've got 4 umpires out there. That 4 of them potentially can overrule one another. Is that how it works? They've all got to say.
Well, according to Razor Ray, you can't, because he was talking about the Ash Johnson.
Razor what?
He was talking about the Ash Johnson getting tackled too high against Adelaide. And I think he was saying, well, the other guy couldn't make a decision. And they just laughed at him because you said often enough, the other umpire runs from 100 metres away to go, yeah, I saw that, I'm paying that. So they can overrule someone else. I don't know who takes priority, but I don't know how the system works in general. I mean...
No, I don't think they do either. Maybe that's just something that needs to evolve with time, that you're allowed to know that you can override other calls or know when they're blatantly wrong. I think at the moment, clearly the instruction is not to interrupt the run of play.
Every rule for the last 10 years has been about keeping the game moving. So increase deliberates or pay him against deliberates. So now it's just encouraging players to try and get a bit of that shit. Kicking out straight away rather than waiting for a goal umpire. Just like, let's get the game moving. The stand rule. You stand there and let your opponent run 10 metres around you, then I'm going to call play on. Again, just keeping the game moving. Every rule change I've made has been about keeping the game moving because for some reason the AFL fears any stoppages. And whenever they see ugly congestion, they think, we've got to find a way to fucking keep the game moving. So that's what they're trying to do. And, it'd be interesting to hear what they actually have to say about that. But the deliberate rule's fucked. There's so many times a player is not going for the boundary. He kicks it. It might take a leg break and go over. And it's like, well, that's deliberate. It's like, how the fuck would the player know if that's going to happen? The sling tack rule, that's fucked because they pay some, they don't pay others. The Clayton Oliver one a few weeks ago, under what their mandate is, even if, I can't remember the player he tackled, but even if he didn't hit his head, that should have still been a report because concussion doesn't just come from impact, it also comes from the whiplash. So it doesn't matter if you don't hit your head, if your head's whiplashed hard enough. The stand rule is just a fucking farce. You're just saying to one guy, you just stand there and take yourself out of the game for the next 10 seconds. There's a lot of rules like this which I think are just a farce. And the problem is, umpires really don't know what to fucking pay because the interpretations are so murky or so ridiculously applied regardless of context. And that's what I think the AFL has lost. They've lost context.
There was one that befuddled me on the weekend where Pendlebury was running down and he didn't realise that the Swans player, I think, was that close. But when he saw him, he hesitated for a second and then he got run down. But at the viewing angle where I was sitting, he clearly had his fucking head taken off. It was a head-eye. Yeah. But it doesn't matter how you executed that tackle. It was a high tackle, but he was infringed for holding the ball. And you're looking at it going, how'd you fucking determine that? The first thing you're going to see with that impact is the high impact. Surely you've got to go with the first thing you see in a tackle. And you think, well, surely there's 4 of them. Now, they'd have to be positioning themselves to cover all 4 sort of viewing angles.
Yeah.
And how does not one of them put their mouth to the whistle and say, no, you got that one wrong? I think it'd be a better game if you did have that, but I don't think the AFL wants the umpires to be seen to be arguing with the decisions made.
Well,
they just want to reinforce the one who blows the whistle, not contest the one who blows the whistle.
Well, soccer has video reviews of decisions and shit. So in AFL, they don't want to do that because they don't want to slow down the game. But there's some that are just fucking clearly wrong. And I'll tell you what shits me is you go back to the Collingwood Adelaide game, that was deplorably umpired. And you had people like Jared Watley who never bashed the umpires, just bashing the fuck out of the umpires. You have that account on Twitter, has the umpire made a bad decision, which is run by an ex-umpire, who said Alex Wedden should be dropped. Coming after that Collingwood Adelaide game, the AFL addressed one decision, which was the Murphy getting hit in the head. And they said, yes, it should have been high and it should have been stopped for the blood rule.
However, that was countered with singling out the names of 3 coaches who questioned the umpiring.
Yeah, but this is the thing I was going to say, is like, hang on, you ignored the other 8, 9 really bad decisions and non-decisions, like the Ash Johnson one. And this is what fucking shits me about the AFL, is like, you cannot comment at all about the umpiring. And it's a ridiculous way to run this, because why are they ever going to improve when they're sacrosanct from any criticism? You get like a player who plays shit, everyone goes open slaver on him, and they're forced to cope with it and grow and get better. Umpires, no, don't worry. You make a fuck up, we will publicly defend you regardless. Alex Wedden, who was terrible in that Collingwood game, and that umpiring account actually said he should be dropped because he didn't just miss that Murphy one. He's missed several throughout the year. I think, like you said, he's missed like 3 really bad ones, and he should be dropped and sent down to the lower league. He still umpired last week.
A lower league or just maybe umpire Carlton games. It's the same thing.
Yeah, you're probably right there. So it just frustrates me that like umpiring's been fucked for years, and people go it's a hard game to umpire. It's not.
Oh, I think the interpretations there's a simple set of rules out there with about 48,000 interpretations per rule.
That's what shoots me.
Complicates it.
But it's like prior opportunity. I actually was thinking about it. It's fucked up the game because it's like if you get tackled and you throw it, but you didn't have a chance to get rid of it, it's fine. Because you didn't have prior opportunity to get rid of it.
It's incorrect disposal every day of the
week.
Yeah.
And it's fucked it up. It's fucked up the context where it should just be like, you know what? You drop it, you throw it, whatever. It is a free.
But if you administered that to every incorrect disposal, you'd have stoppages every 8 seconds, and I don't want that.
But that's again, they can try and get the game moving. But then again, if you've had prior opportunity to get tackled and you can't get rid of it, that's a free also. Like whereas years ago they used to say, well, that's been held to use, can't get rid of it. So that prior opportunity has actually fucked up the context of how you judge that rule because it changes depending on what you've done previously, regardless of what the action is, whether it should be legal or illegal. In fact, it's totally fucking just. It's fucked it up. Out of curiosity, Tasmania, 2027, they're going to be called, I don't know, Tasmanian Devils?
The maps of Tasmania?
Potentially. The Markovs? I don't know.
They can't be called the Devils because apparently
Warner Brothers
holds a cartoon
I'd be really surprised if that held up, if they went to court. Because they'd hold the trademark for that particular designation.
Does that mean they've got a trademark on the actual animal itself?
Well, that's the thing.
It doesn't even resemble the cartoon version.
No, it doesn't spin around. I was really shocked.
No. I mean, when you see with the zoo, they just fat and sit around, pretty much like us.
So I'd actually be surprised if they actually held up, given the animal's indigenous to Tasmania.
So are Tasmanians.
Yeah. But I'd be curious if Tasmania really wanted to challenge it, I'd be curious if that actually held up. But in terms of Tasmania bringing in the team, 2027, they'll get very similar concessions to Gold Coast, GWS.
Is that when they're playing their first AFL side, or is that when they start commencing in...
They're saying 27 and 28, and they're saying they'll have a year in the VFL previously, and then they'll come up. So
TFL? Are they playing in the TFL?
I've got no idea what the plan is. But they'll monopolise a lot of the young talent like GWS and Gold Coast did.
It's good. I enjoy this moment of football, don't you? The next 10 years of trading blokes leaving. And...
But do you think like football clubs, and particularly Collingwood, because they don't really give a fuck about the rest, do you think they're looking at this and going, okay, we need to actually develop a strategy to tide us over this period? Because you go back to 2010 to 11, I'm having a conversation with someone else, and he's a Hawthorn supporter, and he was saying, Collingwood and Hawthorn will be okay during this period because we have young lists, so it'll sustain us while these two new clubs are taking all the best young talent.
Hawthorn's but with a very aged top end though, it's still a concerning time for us.
No, but that's what I'm saying back in 2010 to 11.
Sorry.
Yeah, 2010 to 11. This is what happened. We had a really young list. I don't know if you heard, we won a flag with like the second youngest list ever.
What's a flag?
Hawthorn just sort of topped up where they needed. They got Brian Lake. They got a couple others. What's his name? McAvoy. Collingwood decided, well, let's dismantle the list and let's rebuild.
That'll show them.
Let's rebuild during this period where the whole player agency is compromised because these young players are going to these other clubs. Do you think Collingwood's actually thinking about this and looking at it and going, what do we do?
I certainly hope so.
Or do you think they're just going, well, fuck it, we're just rolling all our dice now and then we'll just...
I would imagine when it comes to recruitment and forward strategy, the list, the landscape certainly changed with that announcement. You'd have to alter your strategy to suit now too, because you're going to have a diversion there some year. Maybe they're going to start feeding that competition in 3 years' time, 2 years' time, who knows. You're going to suddenly have a large contingent of talent heading over to the Apple Isle, and that's going to be diminishing the quality. Because I mean, at the moment, I don't think that there's not a lot of junior footy and stuff being played compared to the other sports, which also means you're going to have a diminishing return of talent across the whole playing field. That the really good ones are all going to go there. You're going to have that period where they're just going to be ludicrously competitive, and then they'll be picked apart for the next 6 years. It throws the whole draft structure into a whole bit of disarray.
I mean, Hawthorn's captain, James Sicily, he was asked, would you play there? He goes, no. I mean, let me...
Goes, it fucking stinks, that place.
Well, let me paraphrase.
There.
He goes, fuck no. I mean, Eddie Maguire made a good point. They're struggling to keep players at the Gold Coast, which, living in the Gold Coast, you're really going to get elite players going, I want to live in Tasmania for the next 10 years. Sorry, Tasmania, but in terms of the amenities and all that sort of shit, you probably get some of the smaller country town players and shit like that who go, yeah, that'd be great, but the bigger city players go, no, I want to go back to fucking Melbourne or wherever. So it'll be a really interesting time, but I really hope that the club is sort of laying down the groundwork and going, we need to work out what the strategy is over this period to remain competitive, because they've put a lot of work in to getting back to where they are, competitive and potentially in contention. And you'd think that they want to remain contenders for as long as possible, but this could really just, take the knees out from under you.
Well, let's hope they have something in mind.
We hope.
Time will tell.
Any final thoughts?
No, let's just bank the 4 points and move on to the GWS game, I think.
Do you boo at all?
Hey?
Do you boo?
Only at the Radleys.
What are the Radleys?
Boo Radley. Do you not watch
okay.
To Kill a Mockingbird, or to Kill My Joke, in your instance?
Yeah.
No, I never boo. I don't have the energy. I just call people
What about
different names.
At a Disney Star Wars movie?
Oh, no, there's too much vomiting going on for that.
Anyway, that's it from us.
And that's it from him.
Later.
Catch. Oh, nice shot. That's it. We're going to lose the flag.
Can't see us losing one.
Oh, you'll see it.